right, guys, so the next video we are watching is the top 10 most powerful characters in Warhammer. This is another one by Wes Warhammer.
The Warhammer franchise is full of ludicrously powerful characters, and it makes sense, because it seems like just about everything in this universe is designed to kill you in the most horrifying way imaginable. But despite the plethora of transhuman super soldiers, golden demigod guardians, immortal killing machines, and masters of the psychic arts, there are entities that dwell just beyond the stars, that make them—
This is how I feel before I clip my fingernails.
—all look like ants by comparison.
Oh,
beings of unimaginable destructive potential that can sunder entire worlds.
I've never seen that art before. I like that,
terrifying armies at a whim. From the dark and sinister chaos gods to the ancient and terrifying Khaine, from the master of mankind to a pair of bumbling orc deities too busy fighting each other to do much of anything else.
Ah, the orc deities. I know nothing about them, but I like that they exist, and I hope they're as goofy as the orcs. I also forgot that Khaine are technically not dead.
These are the top 10 most powerful entities in the entire 40K franchise.
Individuals,
and apologies ahead of time if my voice is a little raspy. I'm actually getting over a cold. All right,
just gonna be...
with all that out of the way, let's dive headfirst into the grimdark.
Okay. It's gonna be... What do you guys think is going to be here? Sonny, of course, I'm gonna be number 1, as 40,000 years from now, I have ascended. But it's gonna be like Chaos God, Chaos God, Chaos God. Orc deities, any god, the fucking clown god. I think it's gonna just be gods.
Number 10, Cegorach.
There's a fucking clown god!
Is the Eldari trickster god, most commonly associated with the faction
I was right!
Now, over the years, he has gone by many names, including the Laughing God or the Great Fool. He is one of the only surviving members of the Eldari pantheon, as aside from himself, Khaine the god of war, and Isha the goddess of healing, each of the other deities would be systematically hunted down and murdered by the newborn chaos god Slaanesh. The legend goes—
What the freaky? I didn't know— I didn't know that the Eldari had like living gods that just got killed. Also, where were these gods when like they were gooning 24/7.
That due to his mocking nature and aloof personality, he was able to distance himself from the acts of hedonism and debauchery that would eventually give rise to Slaanesh in the first place. When the Chaos God was born, he escaped into the webway, where he remained largely unaffected, while the rest of the pantheon would inevitably be cut down. If you're unfamiliar with the webway, it's a pocket dimension that exists between universes. It's many paths spider web across the galaxy, allowing those who can parse its secrets to travel great distances without facing the dangers of utilizing the warp for travel. Cegorach is rumored to have picture-perfect knowledge of all of the infinite paths and corridors within the webway, and he thus imparts that knowledge upon his followers.
Is this him? Or is this a follower?
Allowing the Harlequins to seemingly appear and reappear anywhere across the galaxy. Cegorach's power does not necessarily come in the form of brute force, and more so in his guile and ability to manipulate. It was he who tricked the Khaine into devouring their kin, but we'll touch on them a little bit later in this video.
Wait, whoa, he's fucking crazy! What? Wait, let me go back. Ability to manipulate—
into devouring their kin. But we'll touch on them a little bit later in this video.
Damn!
Buried deep within the webway itself is an Eldari craft world known as the Black Library.
That's some crazy manipulation.
The Black Library is said to be a repository of all the knowledge the Eldar as a species ever managed to gain into the entities that live within the warp. And thus it is fiercely guarded by the Harlequins. At the center of the Black Library exists a legendary tome that has been locked with spiritual chains since the collapse of the Eldar Empire. However, as we move into the 42nd millennium, those chains have finally been broken. Supposedly, the book contains the words of Cegorach himself, and written within a certain passage is a prediction of a new future path that completely circumvents the inevitable destruction of the universe by the Chaos Gods, an event the Eldar refer to as Ranadandra.
Ranadandra?
The Laughing God uses his followers, and very specific entities known as Shadow Seers, to make sure certain events happen at certain times in very specific ways. They view the entire galaxy as a stage, and each and every living creature as an actor in the grand performance. By making sure certain events come to pass, they thus will manifest Cegorach's alternative future into existence.
What the heck? This is nutty. I had no idea this guy was more than anything like— I thought he was just a clown. I thought this was very like orcs. Like clowns are serious clowns or clowns. But no, they're actually trying to like prevent— they're 70D chess players. Gotcha. Yeah, they're like kind of Tzeentch. They're just trying to like— I guess they're like, okay, chaos gods, and it's like Marvel Endgame. How many universes did you see, Doctor Strange? And how many did we win in? 1. So, like, they're just trying to make sure, like, the Chaos Gods don't win in the end, so they're grand scheming.
He's one of the most intentionally mysterious and cryptic characters in the entirety of 40K lore, but his influence can be felt in just about every major pivotal event over the last couple thousand years. For example, even though Yvraine and the Eldar God of the Dead are often credited with the resurrection of Guilliman, it was actually one of his Shadow Seers that pushed Belisarius Cawl to continue his research into the Cadian pylons.
Bro, I have no idea. I know that, I know Guilliman was a head. He was, like, all head. There was no such thing as no head, because he was all head. I don't know how he came back. I didn't know it was, the gods here.
Which not only gave Cadia a fighting chance...
Canadian pylons. Is that what that... Let's see.
...to continue his research into the Cadian pylons.
The subtitles are hilarious.
Which not only gave Cadia a fighting chance against the Despoiler's incursion,
that was Ferrus
but would also lead him to the discovery of certain minerals that would eventually be used in the Armor of Fate, the suit of armor that was used in Guilliman's resurrection. Not to mention, some believe that Cegorach was directly responsible for...
So was Guilliman just dead? He still had a body. Oh, okay, so he was just fine. Ferrus Manus was no head. Gotcha. So this guy is just... He was just dying. He died for a second. This is a I got better moment. He was in stasis. Oh my god. Okay, so he fought Fulgrim and almost died. And then came back. Then he was just like, I literally am kidding. Let's back up a little bit.
Used in Guilliman's resurrection. Not to mention, some believe that Cegorach was directly responsible for Ynid's resurrection in the first place. But we'll get into that in another video.
Damn.
Number 9, the Catan. The Catan were known to be ancient and frighteningly powerful star gods, created at the beginning of time out of the fundamental energies of the universe. They were incorporeal and formless beings whose appetite was so insatiable that they literally drained the life from the stars they encountered by wrapping themselves entirely around them and snuffing them out of existence. This would plunge
He's hungry.
all of the life-bearing worlds in the surrounding systems
we can't have
into
a snack
complete and total
nowadays.
darkness, confining all of the living species that dwelt there to the halls of extinction. These ancient creatures would end up forming an alliance with the Necron Tier in a war against their hated rivals, the Old Ones. It was the Catan that tricked their allies into throwing themselves into the Great Furnaces, causing them to shed their bodies of flesh to instead exist as an engram copy of consciousness within a living metal form. Together, they would war against the Old Ones and their creations, in a war that spanned the entirety of the Milky Way and was known as the War in Heaven. They had, however, deceived their allies, and when the Necron Tier shed their bodies of flesh, the Catan would gorge themselves on their souls. This would result in them becoming ascended and reaching even more insane and terrifying heights of power. At their peak, they were said to be able to raise entire worlds.
Moji, thank you.
So cool, and I wish there was more time in the day to watch you. Damn. You're serving? From that tease WTHHHH.
Just for reference, and I'm gonna put this in. The editor put it in the video. If this becomes a video, I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm gonna look up and see if this guy has any other reacts, because that's the biggest indicator if he's cool with it. But on May 4th, heyo, new outfit. New outfit reveal. Yeah, this looks a little crazy, but because there's color on it. Oh, it's too big. Yeah. New outfit. So, yeah. So make sure you're here. It's going to be on, that's going to be on May 4th. It's going to be like an all-day event. That's in 2 weeks. I teased it today officially for the first time. And next week there's going to be a trailer with more information what we're doing on the day. So I'm sure I'll be telling you guys, but I'm very excited. This took, my first email to this artist was in September of last year. So it's been a very, very long time been working on this. MILF study. It's not a MILF skin. It's not MILF. But all right, back to learning about how the Catan eat entire worlds and the Necrons for breakfast.
With a single glance, and extinguish entire systems by summoning forth reality-warping black holes. However, despite their truly awe-inspiring power, their own hubris would end up being their downfall. Now, as I mentioned earlier in this video, It was actually the laughing god of the Eldari that slowly manipulated the Catan against one another. They would end up feeding on each other until only 5 were left: the Flayer, the Deceiver, the Nightbringer, the Void Dragon, and the Outsider.
Wait, this manipulation clown is actually kind of sick.
Necrons would eventually turn on their would-be gods, and the Maynard dynasty would destroy the Flayer outright. The Void Dragon would end up wounded and flee to Earth in order to prey on humanity. It was ultimately defeated by the Emperor and imprisoned upon Mars. The Nightbringer and the Deceiver would end up shattered, and the Outsider, said to be the most powerful of all of them, would end up being driven into insanity by the lingering bits of consciousness in its mind of all of the other Catan it had consumed. The voices eventually caused it to flee our galaxy in a self-imposed exile. Not much is known about it past this, so it's difficult to quantify its abilities.
I thought they ripped them apart. I thought they kind of like, it was the clown. Apparently the clown is like linked back to a lot of shit. Harlequins are scary. I already don't like clowns. Jesters, however.
That being said, it is believed that the Outsider is the only living intact Catan, and if the Mad Star God was to ever return to the Milky Way, it would be an apocalyptic level threat. When it comes to figuring out just how strong the Catan are, we can look to their shards. The shards themselves are the only thing that remains of the Catan after they were enslaved and shattered by the Necrons. These are some of the most powerful weapons and energy sources that the Necrons have at their disposal, and are unleashed upon the battlefield when they encounter a particularly stubborn enemy that refuses to yield before Necron superiority. Despite the fact that they exist in a fractured state, each one is said to be a being of near unlimited power, manifesting energy blasts made of pure antimatter, dominating the minds of lesser beings in their vicinity, manipulating the flow of time, and even banishing those that stand before them to alternate realities. The 8th edition Necron Codex tells us that their power is limited only by their immense and terrifying imaginations. The Catan shards of the Nightbringer are said to be some of the most powerful the Necrons have access to, which makes sense, as the Nightbringer was the incarnation of death itself, a creature that delighted in inflicting pain and suffering, and was said to be the one that introduced the emotion of fear to the physical universe. It destroyed entire star systems on a whim, and gorged itself on the agony it inflicted on countless billions.
Bro, I feel like we could use these things. Why you kind of, listen, I wasn't gonna say it, like that is we are in danger territory here with that being like a flowy cape. And do what you wish, Mr. Fear, but only thing I'm fearing right now is demonetization. Am I right? Don't do the lick emote. Look, I didn't do it. I'm just saying somebody else pointed it out and I agreed. It's all, we're all, you know.
It's generally believed
what was
by
I
the
saying
Warhammer
before this? I can't
that
remember.
At the apex of their power, the Catan were easily the most powerful beings to have ever existed solely in the physical universe.
Oh yeah, we could use these guys.
Assume they were the equal to the Chaos Gods, albeit the physical universe's version of them. However, this belief exists solely in the realm of speculation. As far as I'm aware, there is no actual source that states this to be true, or gives us a real actual grasp on just how ludicrously powerful they actually were. It's unfortunately one of those things that's just left up to our imagination. Now, if we were to take the absolutely ridiculous power of a single Catan shard and magnify it by 1,000 to get an idea of just how powerful a fully powered Catan actually was,
how do they take these guys down?
Admittedly pretty horrifying.
How do they take this guy down? If they took these guys down, so Necrons beat the Catan, shattered them, how did you do it? Like, and now aren't they still using the Catan as an energy source with great difficulty? By the Necrons being uber powerful. What the fuck? Would they just explode a sun? When this guy went to eat a sun, were they like, oops, and hit the button and exploded that one? Star killer weapons, that's, oh yeah, I guess. Damn. That's like a lot. They can snuff out stars. Yeah, but this guy has unlimited power times 1,000. That's all fuck ton. That equals, I did the math, and it equals a fuck ton.
These would be entities that could destroy entire systems or vast sections of space with a snap of their fingers. But as it stands, this is still all just speculative. We don't know how many individual shards of each Catan exist. It could be a few dozen or thousands. Though due to just how big of a deal each one is made out to be, it's likely that they are relatively rare. We also have to bear in mind that the C'tan were ultimately defeated and enslaved by the Necrons, a species that is definitely insanely powerful, not to take anything away from the Necrons. But despite that, the shattering of the C'tan is a factual example of a mortal race killing or enslaving gods. That is to say, a similar occurrence has never occurred with the Chaos Gods.
That's
Such
pretty
an idea
crazy.
is pretty much unthinkable. So because of this, despite how powerful the C'tan are, they just aren't quite on the same level as the Chaos God.
That would be so fucking cool. Can you imagine, like, the Eldari in 50, 60, 70k are just like, yeah, we have Slaanesh and like, we put her in a jar. And this is just where she is now. We figured it out, guys.
Number 8, Khaine. Khaine, also known as Khaine Chicane or Khaine the Bloody-Handed, is the bloodthirsty Eldari god of war, wrath, and destruction. During the War in Heaven, Khaine would end up in a battle with the Nightbringer, where he subsequently defeated it, shattered its necrodermis body, and, adding further insult to injury, hurled its scythe into the warp. So, in a sense, Khaine was able to defeat the figurative and semi-literal embodiment of death itself. This fight would, however, have major consequences for Khaine, as the shattered body of the C'tan
I've seen art of this guy, but I didn't know who he was.
Many of them piercing its flesh and forever tainting Khaine's body with its essence. Since Khaine is a mythological figure, other than this fight with the Nightbringer.
Do you think if the Eldari put Slaanesh in a jar, they'd go back to Yuri all the time? I hope not. Possibly, probably.
We don't get a lot of insight into just how powerful they actually are. So instead, we will turn to the avatars of Khaine, which exist as a sliver of his true power. An avatar of Khaine is a fiery manifestation of Khaine's wrath, an entity that towers over the battlefield and can cleave armored vehicles in half with a single swing of their sword. They leave a burning trail of destruction in their wake wherever they go, and are constantly surrounded by a swirling inferno that causes everything in their vicinity to burst into flames.
I'm
Much
cold
like how the god
all
they
the
are
time,
an
and
aspect
I would
of
like
was
to be one
known
of
for
these.
its unquenchable thirst for battle. The Avatar will not rest until
This
all
is
of
me.
the enemies of the Eldari and all of their fortifications are left as nothing more than smoldering ruins.
Oh, they
the
serve
carnage
the Eldari
Avatars can
then?
inflict is absolutely legendary. Despite the fact that many 40k authors have unfortunately disrespected them by using them as a simple plot device to show off just how strong their main characters are. Regardless of this plot-based nonsense, the reality is these monstrosities are some of the most powerful weapons the Eldar have access to.
So I get what you mean by using them as plot devices. That happens so often when it's just not popular enough for people to be cheering for these guys, but they're supposed to be strong. So all we do is show off them die.
Each and every one existing is only a sliver of Khaine's full unfractured power. The fact that Khaine was able to kill the Nightbringer in its full unshattered form is an absolutely remarkable feat, and is why he ranks above the C'tan in the list.
Remarkable feat.
However, Khaine himself would in fact be defeated by a different god, and in a twist of fate similar to that of the C'tan, would end up shattered into thousands of fragments. Number 7, Slaanesh. Slaanesh, also known as the Dark Prince or She Who Thirsts.
Tell me I've been saying it wrong. I will fucking scream. It's Slaanesh, right? Don't say Slaanesh. Is it... Why is he saying it like that? It's Slaanesh. So is this just a troll? I mean, to be fair, they do spell it with 2 A's, it seems. Slaanesh. You've been saying it wrong? Shit. I mean, there are 2 A's in the spelling, no? He's pronouncing it weird, but it's a made-up name. Slaanesh. Dude, there's no way. I gotta call her Slaanesh. It's Slaanesh. Slaanesh? Dude, I can't do it now. Tell him in the comments. Okay, that's it. I'm gonna tell the Mr. Warhammer that he's saying it wrong. Mr. Warhammer, I think I disagree with your spelling, your pronunciation of the fake name that is made up. Slaanesh, and I'm making a big deal about it by telling you. Oh my god, don't look at my spelling. Don't.
Is the chaos god of excess, hedonism, debauchery, and all things kinky and depraved.
Listen.
Every single sentient creature.
You also missed the pronouns? Is it not she? Am I allowed to use he, she, and they? Because they say the prince and she.
no matter how
well, I
stoic,
don't know.
is not completely free from desire, whether it be physical, mental, or spiritual. We all have needs and wants that we wish to see fulfilled. Likewise, these desires exist upon a precipice, and if pushed too far, can descend into full-blown obsession. That which she who thirsts feeds upon. Desire can come in infinite forms. It could be something humble, like a starving laborer that desires nothing more than food for their family. Something
greedy
a bit more ego-driven,
bitch.
like a politician's lust for
You
power, or on
desirous,
the depraved end of the spectrum, the sadistic killer's inclination to inflict pain. Whenever a mortal gives in to temptation of any form, they are unknowingly courting Slaanesh. The act of giving in pushes them further along a dark path towards depravity and insanity. Slaanesh will then guide the individual to seek out ever more heightening extremes, eventually leaving them as an addict that can only experience pleasure through the darkest and most sadistic of actions. Slaanesh watches from their dark realm in utter delight as the galaxy descends further into debauchery. They view mortals as nothing more than playthings, toys that were designed to be
so much in these videos
and manipulated.
Anytime Slaanesh, okay guys, this would be a genuine challenge. Anytime you are watching a Warhammer video and debauchery is used in the same while describing Slaanesh, take a shot and get smashed in moments. Guys, I forgot about my coffee. Let me really quickly go grab a cup of coffee here. I'll be right back. Take me 2 seconds. I'm back. Did you miss me? I have a little cup of coffee. It's decaf and I felt like I needed something sweet. So it's got a little bit, I literally need new monitors because everything I look up about why my monitor flashes, I've changed my settings a ton. All of them are saying it's a frame rate issue. It's so annoying. But I use like an ancient monitor and it's a hook rate and my frame rate problem and it's different from when I stream in and blah, 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 blah. Anyway, let's get back to it.
As nothing more than playthings, toys that were designed to be poked, prodded, and manipulated. Slaanesh is the youngest of the 4 gods, and thus is generally viewed as the weakest. Although this description can be misleading. Slaanesh's power is far more subtle and manipulative than, say, the raw strength of Khorne or the voracious diseases of Nurgle. Their demons, likewise, are primarily designed to invoke the desperate and hedonistic desires of mortal hearts. They are entities formed of contradiction,
they try to make you
graceful
fuck.
And repugnantly beautiful. Enchanting, yet ultimately horrifying.
Vampires.
Much like how Slaanesh himself is said to be so disarmingly beautiful and alluring that no mortal can look upon them without instantly losing their soul.
What? Dude, how many... Okay, this Warhammer, the second Warhammer hits, like, book talk, like TikTok women fairy stuff, it's GG. We're gonna get books about this shit. We're gonna get people being like, there's gonna be a Slaanesh X-reader... like publication somewhere.
Slaanesh was born from the rampant degeneracy that had come to infect Eldar society after the War in Heaven. The depraved energy the species generated gestated in the warp before finally reaching a breaking point, which gave birth to a new Chaos God. The resulting birth scream literally ripped a hole in reality, and the resulting shockwave killed each and every Eldar on every world for hundreds of light years. The terrible wound in reality where the 2 universes now overlap is what we know today as the Eye of Terror. Immediately after their birth, Slaanesh would go on an absolute
So wait a second, when Slaanesh was born, that created the Eye of Terror?
Murderous rampage and would kill all of the gods of the Eldar pantheon, with the exception of Isha, Khaine, and Cegorach. So despite how ridiculously powerful each of them were, they were nothing in comparison to She Who Thirsts, who systematically slaughtered each and every one of them, without taking a rest between each kill. Cegorach managed to escape into the webway, whereas Isha was spared by Slaanesh but then ultimately kidnapped by Nurgle. Khaine would be the last one on Slaanesh's hit list, but even against a god who had just battled multiple other deities, he was no match for the Dark Prince and ended up shattered into thousands of shards. I'll point out that being the weakest of the 4 Chaos Gods is kind of like being the weakest heavyweight champion of the world. Yeah, some other title holder would probably beat them if they both fought during their prime, but against the rest of us normies, it would be an absolute slaughter. It's also important to note that when we talk about the Chaos Gods and just how powerful they are, the lore states that at one point each and every one of them was the most powerful. With Slaanesh, it definitely would have been right after their birth. Because of this, I'm going to be ordering the Chaos Gods where they fall in the hierarchy as of the 42nd millennium. Number 6.
I know we're up to the 42nd millennium, like, but what does that mean? Are we like inching our way to 50K? And question, like, does that mean we don't look back? We're not like looking back at 40K. When we move on to 41K, sorry. Does that mean we're no longer in 40K and we're just in 41K now? And I freaking forget 0 to 1 is technically 1 still. Stories can be set at any time. A timeline is moving forward now. Gotcha. They're like, we kind of we got to change the setting a little bit. 40.5. Gotcha. 50K is coming out in 60 years. It's got to happen, guys.
Nurgle.
They went back.
Nurgle, the grandfather, lord of plagues and disease, is the god of the cycle of life and death, entropy, rot, decay, and pestilence. He stands apart from the other gods that, in his own, albeit disturbing way, is the only one of the pantheon that genuinely cares for his followers. He views each and every one of them as his beloved children, and bestows upon them ever more generous blessings in the form of new supernatural diseases, demonic parasites, and all forms of sickening mutation. Every pox.
He's my favorite now. That's all it took. He likes us. No, that's why you always say that Papa Nurgle loves you. What a great dad. What a cool dad!
Boil, blister, and sore is viewed by those who worship him as a sign of his love.
What a nice dad!
He is the embodiment of the fear of death shared by all sentient creatures, perhaps the first fear to have ever existed in this universe. But despite this, he teaches his followers that life and death, growth and decay are all part of the same cycle, one that cannot change. He tells them to not fight against this cycle, but to embrace it, to embrace the despair of death. He teaches that entropy is the one unchanging truth of the universe. All things have a beginning and an end. Every life will end. Every civilization will rise and fall. Every tower will eventually crumble, and every disease will eventually run its course. He is the mastermind behind every virus, disease, and plague that has ever existed in the mortal universe, or even these supernatural diseases of the soul that emanate from the immaterium. Much like the Great Cycle, or
so he's responsible for my rheumatoid arthritis.
Perhaps more accurately, like the proliferation and subsequent remission of a disease, so too does Nurgle's power wax and wane. There were moments in time where plague runs rampant across the galaxy, and Nurgle's power is at its apex, surpassing all of the other gods and becoming a truly unstoppable force. It is, however, inevitable that his power will wane again, and he will be relegated to a relatively weak point in the pantheon. As a result,
look at this. Nurgle, you need to go on a walk.
These power spikes are vastly more predictable than those of his siblings.
Go on a walk with me.
Despite their disturbing appearance, the warriors that have pledged themselves to his service are incredibly resilient, and many of whom can suffer multiple mortal wounds and keep marching forward as if nothing happened.
Sorry, the subtitles are hilarious.
Get caught in rancid rolls of diseased blubber, and bolter shells are absorbed and rusted to dust inside of their bodies. It is as if the cycle has simply paused for them, their bodies displaying the telltale signs of rot and disease, yet they are seemingly immune to its effects.
Do they have any professional, like, official art books? Because I mentioned it before, but I don't like how a lot of the art that is so incredible looking is just pixelated. I want shit in, like, good quality, and that's something we're missing is, like, I know that a lot of the art is old, but they need, like, full splashes of, like, new things that are in, like, 4K.
They cannot die by natural means and are completely immune to pain. Before we dive any deeper, here's a quick shout out to this video's sponsor.
What is your sponsor? War Thunder! Go check his link out in the description. You're gonna have to go to his video and click his link. Seeing as though this is old, it might not be a current link, but that's okay. Go check his link. I'm not gonna lie, guys, I do have a question. Are there any books about the goofy clown people? Yeah, there's one Harlequin's book. Bro, that's fucking sad. Like, why? Harlequin ebook. Let's see this. This is it. This is the Harlequin story. God fucking damn it. They're like, we gotta, why even make the plastic? I guess. They are secretive. Why make the plastic models ever if you're just gonna be like, you're not gonna make content for the rest of them? It's Ian Watson. Okay, guys, I'm not gonna lie. Dan Abnett, this is a fucking excellently read, like, this reads like butter. Horse Rising read like fucking butter. And unfortunately, False Gods reads like very weird. It's like people don't think or do things like this. It's unnatural filler. Go get an overview of the lore of the faction. I grab an old used codex. Aside of the outdated rules are usually good lore. Shit! Are both Dan Abnett? No, the second one's a different author. What is the second one? The book's over in my living room. Yeah, Guy Haley. Dan Abnett is a goat. His is so fucking good. It's such a shame because, like, dude, I swear to God, like, Dan Abnett will be like, Horus gazed upon Loken's form, and then like the other guy who fucking wrote False Gods will be like, Horus giggled. Horus literally like giggled so hard. Not really, but like he like they don't write the character. Horus did he. It's like things that like Horus like the characters don't. No one does actually. Graham McNeil. I'm not trying to shit on this guy. It's just I think you know I think that if we had started with McNeil, if he had written Horus Rising, maybe I wouldn't find so much disturbance in going to the next guy. But yeah, I'm like enduring False Gods right now to get to Galaxy in Flames. But anyway, I think I woke up my neighbor with my cackle. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Oh my god. Okay, let's continue. Okay. Ooh, what is that? Oh my god. Okay.
Number 5, Gork and Mork. Despite the
Gork
previous
and
couple of
Mork.
entries on this list, I'm sure you were expecting another Chaos God here. But that is in fact incorrect, my friend. It's Gork and Mork, the gods of the
Gork?
orcs. Almost all of the lore we have about them comes from the orcs themselves.
This is two
They say
people.
they are the biggest and toughest gods. One is brutally cunning, and the other is cunningly brutal. Mork is clever enough to wait for you to have your back turned before hitting you twice as hard. Whereas
Whoa.
Gork will hit you regular-like, but then when you turn to face him, he'll punch you twice as hard. Because of this, it is common
wait.
for orcs to have a favorite of the two gods. Gork represents the
Gork
pure
and
aggressive
Mork.
nature of the orcs and is more preferred by boys, knobs, and any straightforward orc fighter. Whereas Mork's cunningness makes him the preferred deity of the more esoteric orc units, like Weird Boys, Commandos, and Mech Boys to name a few. But
It's so funny because the second they start talking about orcs, it just feels like they're making shit up. The Weird Boy.
at the end of the day, they're mostly
Sounds like a fan
interchangeable,
fiction.
and I think the orcs forget there's a difference pretty often.
I love
when
it
it comes to
so
measuring their
much.
power, we have to get a little bit
like we
speculative.
needed this.
Warp entities like the gods get their power from collective belief and emotion.
was a
Take,
necessity
for example,
in this
Slaanesh.
universe.
They get their power from excess. So the more people pray to Slaanesh, and the more there's an abundance of hedonism and debauchery in the galaxy, the stronger they become. The orcs have a presence in the warp, just like every other living creature. And they
Yeah.
are so unbelievably
They're
simple
warpy.
in nature that their gods don't have these grand mythologies with all this overlapping lore that tends to contradict itself. No,
They're just
nothing like
gods.
that. The orcs think their gods are the best, and thus they're the best. It's beautifully simple. So we have
Oh my gosh, I
can assume
space barred my mic, but they basically believe their god is strong and therefore it is.
this belief in their god's defining feature being that they're bigger and tougher and stronger than every other god, it would in fact begin to manifest.
that.
Consider how powerful the Eldar gods were when worshipped exclusively by the Eldari. The orcs are the most numerous species in the entire Milky Way.
Oh my
outnumbering
God.
something like humanity,
like the
100,
orcs.
if not 1,000 to 1. It makes
They're just
sense if you think
likable.
about it. But as is orc tradition, it makes even more sense if you don't think too hard about it. And speaking of their mythology, we actually have a pretty good example of a legend about Gork and Mork that demonstrates they were at least strong enough to defeat one of the Chaos Gods.
Right, so one day, Gork and Mork went looking for a gigantic squiggly beast, and they find it at the
What?
bottom of a huge cesspit. And also at the bottom of that cesspit was Nurgle, who had eaten all the snotlings. And
Oh my God.
Gork and Mork clobbered Nurgle so hard, he spewed up all the snotlings that were still alive. Nurgle shrank and became a squiggly beast. The
What?
snotlings then turned that squig into a feast for Gork and Mork.
What is this? Can't be
This
true.
myth clearly represents the orcs' triumph over Nurgle. The orcs have no fear of the realms of Nurgle and thus happily thrive on squiggly beasts that breed in their cesspits.
What the fuck? This is just stories. It's not real. They said it's true, so it's true. They wouldn't lie. It's pure shenanigans.
Despite this story, we don't see a lot of evidence of them fighting against the Chaos Gods in the lore. Gork and Mork are not sending incursions of orc demons into real space, nor are their blessed followers turning into the equivalent of demon princes. But now that I think about it, that would actually be pretty awesome. However, from what I've read, all of this would certainly be possible. Gork and Mork really could be the strongest of the gods and can wipe the rest of them out.
I want to see mankind start, like, look, we got enemies on every front. The fucking orcs don't want to kill humanity, just want to kill people. Anything. It's like people are there. So why don't we just, like, I don't know, partner up and be like, hey, we're killing Tyranids. We want to kill too. No, I'm not a heretic. I'm not a heretic. I'm pragmatic. You know, and is there no one who can just kind of like put a band-aid on the Emperor? You know, that has actually happened. Oh, they did that? Hey, don't call me heretic. Don't, look, they've done it. It always ends up bad. Oh, there have been attempts. It's not heresy. I'm calling an Inquisitor. Someone get him. Pet Rock, you can't leave the chat. The chat has been locked. Your exit button does not work. Some Inquisitors have tried to make deals with the Drakari to see if they can fix them. That's like the last thing I would do. Like I would try to shake hands with a Tyranid before I was like Drakar. Like, yeah, let's go get some dark elves in here who make people into chairs. But yeah, orcs are the ones that kept the Emperor alive. I do, like, they believed he was alive and therefore he couldn't die. All right. Go literally do like a campaign. Do a campaign. Go and send millions of humans into, and their purpose is to be like, the Emperor is revived, and they get slaughtered. But all of them, they're just, the Emperor is alive and well, to as many people as too many orcs as you can, and watch it just fucking happen. Like, start an information campaign. Anyway.
They are, however, too busy fighting themselves.
It will become real.
That's all they've done since the dawn of the orcs, is just beat the crap out of each other. So if you want my personal, definitely unbiased opinion, Gork and Mork are definitely the strongest. But for the sake of trying to be as accurate as possible with my videos and not just throw out the dozens of hours of research I've put into each and every one of them, I have to rank them in the purely speculative realm. Also, some dude on Twitter theorized that Gork and Mork are just Khorne and Tzeentch, but they painted themselves green and whipped the orcs up into a frenzy. That's neither here nor there, and is definitely not canon, but this is my video and it made me laugh, so I'm including it. Number 4. Tzeentch.
It's my video. I can do what I want.
Also known as the Changer of Ways or the Architect of Fate, is the chaos god of sorcery, knowledge, mutation, destiny, lies, and trickery. He is directly empowered by every mortal race through their desire to plot and deceive. All those who act deceptively or would pursue knowledge and understanding with a desire to ultimately manipulate the world around them inevitably draw the attention of Tzeentch. Every living creature exists in a state of mutability. We are all constantly changing in a million different ways, and not always readily apparent. From the grand and more obvious, like an advancement in rank within our society, down to the microscopic level of cellular division. As mortal beings, we are ultimately malleable, and that
when I cellularly divide, my mitosis is feeding Tzeentch.
That malleability has drawn the eyes of the Changer of Ways upon mankind. There are 1,001 ways in which an individual can come to worshiping Tzeentch, but in almost all of these cases, they involve a desire for change, whether that be through their own ambitions, a desire to escape their figurative or literal bonds that
So when I wanted to raise at work, was I Tzeentching it up?
Shackle them to a miserable existence, or in some instances, a desire for unbridled power. Because of this, Tzeentch often attracts would-be practitioners of the dark arts.
I'm a Tzeentch
His
feeder.
Demons whisper forbidden secrets into the minds of mortals, telling them truths of the universe too impossible to be believed.
Well, can't you want change for something better?
To ignore. The individual will then seek out answers to questions no mortal was ever meant to ask, and will ultimately find themselves as one of his faithful. The promise of power proving to be too intoxicating for mortals to resist.
So he's actually also kind of like the knowledge one in a way, because like acquiring knowledge is change for the brain.
Cultures. All of the gods have been depicted in a lot of different ways, but most often with several identifiable themes present in all of them. Tzeentch is the exception. And due to his nature as the incarnation of change without limits, this would make sense. He has been depicted as a twinkling constellation of blinking eyes, as a being of illuminating
He's an
warp
angel.
flame, an elaborate and intricate puppeteer that pulls on the infinite strands of fate, and most commonly in the 40K community, a giant blue squid monster. All magic, sorcery,
I've
and
seen
psychic
a lot of his
abilities
tentacles.
can trace their origin back to the immaterial.
He's definitely always has
and
a
thus to Tzeentch,
squid
the
hole
master
somewhere.
of magic in all its forms. He is able to perceive every event that has ever occurred across space and time, while also being able to see the strands of fate that lead to every potential future simultaneously.
What the
Trying to
fuck?
directly measure his intelligence with numbers is kind of meaningless. But to simplify it, this is an entity that would measure his IQ in the quintillions. He has plans
What the
within
fuck?
plans within plans, and the most mundane of events may set in motion a web of compounding instances that may not bear fruit for thousands of years.
How
but
do
will
you
ultimately
outplay this
secure
shit?
him
He can
victory.
play, like,
Yet this
8D
impossibly
chess.
complex web of plans spreads so incomprehensibly wide over all of reality that it touches every living thing at one point or another, whether or not the individual realizes it or not. He perceives every event, intention, idea, thought, and whispered prayer of every mortal. and is
Well,
impossibly
then he has every time I have thought of Sisters of Battle that in a less than the battle stance. Tzeentch took note of this.
complex mind is able to work out just how every single one of these will
Unbelievable.
potentially impact the future.
Get
He
out of my
watches over
mind,
every
Tzeentch. You don't
sentient
need to
creature
see
within
all
the
that.
mortal universe with
Good
great
save.
enthusiasm, watching as each of his plots
think
and
that was,
schemes slowly begin to
I think it was
unfold
actually
into
self-incriminating. I don't think this
history.
was a
Tzeentch favors the cunning and
save.
intelligent over the physically strong, and thus rewards his followers with insight into the future and access to forbidden lore.
I like
He is
his bird
ludicrously
head
strong,
guy.
but at one point was said to be even stronger. So strong, in fact, that the gods did the impossible. They set aside their differences to team up against him in order to bring him back down to their level. This was
Wow.
ultimately successful, but according to the Great Deceiver, was all part of his plan. Some believe that if Tzeentch truly
I
willed it,
lost.
he would end the Great Game
According
and
to
achieve
my
dominance
plan.
over the rest of the Pantheon. But
They're
due to his
battling.
complicated and enthusiastic nature for the Great Game itself, he never would. And most likely,
It's a battle.
incapable of doing
Certainly.
so. Based on Tzeentch's nature, I don't think
Listen,
he personally has the ability
I
to
can't explain
win.
myself.
The compulsion to keep the game going is just too ingrained in him.
Oh,
Meaning doing
shit.
anything that would end the game is actually an impossibility.
Damn, he can't win because he does not want to. Which means he probably has to plan his own downfall.
Number 3,
That's
the Emperor
crazy.
of Mankind.
Number 3!
The Emperor is without question the most powerful mortal to have ever lived. And
Holy fuck, this guy's more powerful than the entire fucking Slaanesh and Tzeentch? What? I was not expecting to. By the time he was not. When we started with Catan, or I mean, with whatever this guy was, I was kind of like, Emperor is not going to be here. He's higher? He's a human. Praise be for certain. Get the laser sight off my forehead. But there's a reason mankind isn't dead yet. He is. He's fucking dead. He's literally just he's a little corpse that's like like a heartbeat goes off once a fucking 1,000 years. He's just sitting there. He's like a skeleton. He's just a girl. Oh my god. He's practically dead. He's a vegetable. What can he do? Do not call the Inquisitors. I am simply asking. I'm not asking questions. What are you gonna do? Send them back in time? Going to go missing. Okay, well, it's heresy to have made this video and not put him at number 1.
And by
We're
the
all
time of the
heretics.
42nd millennium, he has most likely become a god. Although this is intentionally left
What?
purposely vague and cryptic within the lore. He was able to defeat and bind Dracnian, the demon created in the first murder. He is said to be more physically
don't know what
powerful than
that
any of
means.
the Primarchs, which is incredibly impressive, considering that we've watched Angron bench press a Warhound Titan, and Sanguinius take down 2 of them, as well as a Warlord Titan in melee combat. He is known to project an aura
Strong.
that causes demons to flee in terror or burst
her
into
in
flames.
heresy.
He defeated
Shit.
an ascended Horus, his Primarch son that, at the time of their battle, had received an enormous power boost from all 4 Chaos Gods. As a child, he managed to kill his
Damn, that's
uncle
kinda
by
crazy.
stopping his heart with a single thought. We've seen him use his incredible...
What? Why would you do that? Biggie, what the fuck? Bring him back. You have time. Was his uncle a piece of shit?
Psychic might to force the entire Wordbearers Legion to kneel with a single psychic command. We also know that he is a perpetual and cannot truly die, and that he has mastered every form of academics.
Well, I don't know. We've had some other perpetuals die.
Study. So with that impressive list of feats that were accomplished when he was just a mortal, I'm guessing you're wondering why he's not ranked #1 on this list, and we're gonna get into that. The Emperor of Mankind is not just a character, he is a plot device, a MacGuffin, a living deus ex machina, and every other literary trope you can think of,
I heard
all
that as
wrapped up
McMuffin.
into a single entity. He is exactly as powerful as any individual story needs.
Oh, what about the guy who sat on the chair? Did that guy not just evaporate? It was Malkador, wasn't it? Yeah. Is he gone? I thought he was a perpetual who was just like gone. He poofed. Okay, so you can technically be a perpetual and be uber gone. Poor Big E, his best friend. He was once Alexander the Great. I think the Jesus thing is like a theory, because I know that some people think that he might have been I can't remember. Oh fuck, I don't want to get my not on Easter. I can't get my fucking figures wrong. Anyway, somebody who met Jesus, prominent in the Bible, can't remember.
Him to be. He is completely unknowable. He has plans within plans within plans. He has mastery over the ability to foresee into the future and can take a single action that will, over the course of thousands of years, come to create an entirely new societies. Much like what happened when he defeated the Void Dragon, imprisoned it upon Mars, and then subsequently the dreams of machines the Catan would generate in the inhabitants of the Red Planet would eventually give rise to the Mechanicum, a faction that would supply his armies with fantastical new war machines. He is a psychic phenomena, a hurricane of arcane potential. Yet, despite this, due to many contrasting depictions of him by different authors, we aren't able to get a real feel for the full scope of his abilities without filling in the blanks with our own interpretations of the text. On one hand, he is said to be powerful enough to challenge the ruinous powers, yet in a fight against a 30-foot-tall orc, he had to be saved by his son Horus. But did he?
That is actually really, really funny. We'll just say it was a typo and it was a 300-foot tall.
Throw the fight intentionally because his foresight told him that the resulting saving by his son would boost his confidence and thus play into future events? Who knows?
Such as him killing
There's nothing in that story
him.
to suggest that. No winking at the audience, no foreshadowing of future events, or some cryptic line at the end of the book.
Can you imagine? Oh my god, Big E's on the floor and he's like, oh no, oh, I'm fucking dying. If only somebody could save me, Horus. And Horus is like, me? Like runs over.
Yet this is the narrative that many of us
Lazy
have
town
adopted
lore.
as the godlike being who can go toe-to-toe with the chaos gods, losing to an admittedly enormous orc just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
But I feel that's kind of the point. The mystery, the uncertainty. No matter how much somebody learns about the Emperor, they are constantly left with even more questions by the end of each and every story. They are left in a constant state of doubt over what they think they know. And to me, that's the entire point of a character like the Emperor. Is he a giant, shimmering, godlike being that will lead humanity into the future? Or is he a shriveled up old perpetual that just projects an illusion of grandeur to manipulate those around him?
Dude, can you imagine if Big E has like damn bad imposter syndrome? He's just like, oh fuck, like I have no idea what I'm doing. Like he does something and then these like 1,000 years later he sees a consequence. He's like all a part of Keikaku. I am like, I knew that would happen. I foresaw this. And he's like, oh shit, I had no idea this was gonna happen. This is what I wanted. I think, oh fuck.
All of these events actually happen? Or are they simply the result of thousands of years of propaganda and selective record purging?
True.
This is what makes the Emperor so fascinating.
We are 40K.
And above all else, in my personal opinion,
can never know what's real.
The idea that you can have this character be written about and expanded upon by dozens of different authors over multiple decades, each contributing a new element to the multifaceted enigma that is the Emperor. And yet, he
He's more
never
myth.
gets boring. He never falls into the Superman trope, wherein a character has demonstrated so many ludicrous feats over the years, it's impossible to take any threat he comes into contact with seriously. Because at the heart of it all, the reader is still left doubting what they think they know about him. I'll fully admit that the Emperor is one of my favorite characters. Not only is he deeply fascinating, but he's inspired more debates and late-night deep dives of obscure lore than any other character I can think of. Yet, because of his unknowable nature, assessing his true power level after his ascendancy to the realm of the spiritual is an impossible task. Every single—
Yeah, he's basically, it's just like, I feel like everything in 40K about Big E is like a big-ass guess. Or propaganda. Because, like, no human being in 40K has talked to him or knows a guy who remembers a guy who truly had contact with the guy. Do you think Biggie invented Pilk? Dude, if Pepsi's gone in 40K, that's it. I can't survive this Gilliman. Okay, Gilliman, that's true. If you're not a Primarch, who else? And maybe some well, I guess you'd have to be a space marine in the big machine thingy thing that I can't remember the name of. Maybe you could have seen him. Malkador, he's dead. Yeah, but he's dead. Maybe the Primarchs didn't really know him either. Yeah, apparently he was a pretty shit dad. The first tick off to him being not a great dad is him losing all of his sons. And then also being like, you're not my son. He like didn't really want them to call him dad. He was like, hey, do you want to speak with the corpse in 40K after returning? And he was very quiet about what was said, not particularly amused. Oh. He could speak to it? He could speak to him? Who can speak to him? I thought that was the point, is that we have no idea what the fuck he's saying. He's just there. What did he, like, mind link? Isn't that what the whole text-to-speech thing? And a psychic mind link. Dude, tell me what he said right now. This guy, okay, I want to know what this guy's thinking. What's in this? Don't call him Robert, girly man. Got mega depression. Oh boy. Oh boy. Well, anyway, we'll just poor girly man got mentally scarred.
Failure of his
We're continuing.
Be written off as him either is an impossible task. Every single failure of his can be written off as him either only using 1/100th of his power, or that failure was a secret victory, as the unraveling of one of his plans would put him closer to his ultimate goals. There is equal evidence to support such notions as true and false. Did he plan the Horus Heresy from the start in order to eliminate problematic legions, much like he did with the Thunder Warriors? Did he know Magnus was going to sabotage his Webway Gate, and thus made a problematic judgment call at Nicaea to ensure that it would happen? Was it his plan all along to end up on the Golden Throne so he could ascend to godhood? Did he seemingly crusade against religion in order to eliminate competition so once he was entombed there, he would be the only god left for humanity to turn to? Was he—
Oh my god. That's an interesting theory. He was like, you know what? Wait a second. You think it becomes
lying to Ra Endymion when he described his foresight as
Ra
fallible?
Endymion.
When it comes to the Emperor, the questions and mysteries are more captivating than any answer could ever possibly be.
Subtitles are hilarious.
And if the writers are smart, they'll keep most of those mysteries unanswered. Aside from the examples of physical strength that I mentioned at the beginning of this, we also know that in Warhammer, beliefs have power. The more people believe in something, the more it begins to manifest in the warp. The Emperor has been worshipped as the one true god of humanity by quintillions of people across the galaxy for over 10,000 years. Thus, we can assume that his spiritual form has swelled immensely in power, many believing that he has truly become a god. If this is true, and he really is on the level of the Chaos Gods, then he would be able to display similar powers to them, and namely—
I guess there is a lot of people praying to him.
The ability to create demons. Each demon is a splinter of their patron deity, having a portion of their personality and in many cases supposedly looking like them. It is believed by some that the entities such as the Living Saints are the Emperor's equivalent to demon princes,
Celestine.
And the Legion of the Damned is his equivalent of demons, which would make sense. If the Emperor had the ability to create demons, they would certainly resemble Astartes.
Celestine,
and there is evidence to support both of those claims, but as of today, it is something that is still intentionally left vague and mysterious. The best tool we have for measuring his current power level is the accepted truth that the Emperor is in the warp, battling against the 4 Chaos Gods and managing to keep them at bay. He's not strong enough to outright destroy them, but he can keep them from destroying the physical universe. His power is not absolute, because if it was, then we wouldn't be seeing demons manifest in our universe in the first place. If he was more powerful than the other gods, they would have all had to turn their attention solely on him. And herein lies the problem with the Emperor versus the Chaos Gods. We know that it's not just him fighting all of them at once. It's a 5-way battle, where everyone is fighting everyone. Well, the Emperor is fighting off all 4 of them at the same time. Nurgle, for example, is fighting Khorne, Tzeentch, Slaanesh, and the Emperor, also at the same time. It's exactly the same for each of the combatants. That means in this hypothetical scenario of a 4 against 1 in any direction, any of these figures could be eliminated. If the gods set aside their differences and gave the Emperor their full attention, it would be no contest. He would fail.
So it's because it's equally spread out, he's like able to kind of do something about it. But if all of them were like, wait, hold on.
So know that if one of the gods manages to become too powerful, the others will unite to knock them back down to the same level as the rest of them. This happened famously with Tzeentch at one point, and the resulting battle between him and his siblings saw his crystal staff, said to be the most powerful weapon in all of existence, shattered into thousands of pieces, which then rained down upon the physical universe, each one representing a different spell, thus introducing magic to our realm. Even though Khorne is said to be the most powerful of all of the ruinous powers in the current setting, the other gods have not deemed him a sufficient enough threat to form an alliance. We can assume that it is the same for the Emperor. He's powerful enough to be a problem, but not powerful enough for them to unite against. It is said that from our perspective, the Emperor is growing in power every single day, as more and more of the beliefs, hopes, and love of humanity funnels into him.
Yeah, love of humanity and sacrifices of 1,000 psychers every day.
He swells in might and will one day overpower the Chaos Gods. It's similar to how the decadence and extremes of the Eldar swelled over time and eventually gave birth to Slaanesh. They started off as non-existent.
I can't call her Slaanesh. I have to call her Slaanesh.
Until a breaking point was finally reached, and they ripped their way into our reality. However, it's important to remember that in Warhammer, when we speak of the Immaterium, time is meaningless. The Chaos Gods refer to
everything
Slaanesh
everywhere
as having
all at
always
once.
existed, even though we in the physical universe have an exact date when they were born. The gods.
Ooh, that is interesting. Once something is, it has always been.
Gods are simultaneous.
Oh, by the way, text-to-speech is off when the crewling is not present. The Emperor had real fatherly affection for the Primarchs, however, him developing these familial feelings conflicted with the purpose he created for them for. Father wants to love them, but knows he can't do the purpose he created them for. He was internally conflicted. I feel like he could have just been like, all right, son, go do your purpose.
At their weakest and strongest points. They have always and never existed at the same time. To me, this means that we will see the Emperor become more active over time, and it will appear as if he is getting stronger. But his battle in the warp against them is like trying to measure the immeasurable. The escalation is as ultimately irrelevant as it is impossible to quantify. But perhaps that's the point. Perhaps he will never be strong enough to kill the other gods. Maybe introducing a god of order to the Pantheon will bring balance to the Immaterium. And maybe that's the best we can hope for.
God of order, eh? Faffin! There's a fantastic current events Custodies and Sisters of Silence book set around Guilliman coming back and a demon invasion of Terra called Watchers of the Throne. So, Watchers of the Throne, is that not... is that a standalone book? I have so many books I want to read. Holy fuck. I have promised myself that I will get through the first 4 books of Horus Rising. That is what I gotta do. And potentially just read the first 4 books and then skip to the invasion of Terra. Just skip the other 60. But and then I also would like to read not gonna lie, I kind of want to read this the clown book. I got a lot to do. And you know what? I'm kind of curious because one of you guys did buy me a book on Throne. And I didn't get it. The Necron book I did not get yet. I'm gonna have to check that out. There's a chance that it went out of stock and they just gave me the money, or it's out of stock and they're waiting for it to come back. So I'll figure that out. But I do have a backlog. I will keep that in mind Watchers of the Throne. I've heard of it. Infinite and the Divine. Yeah, that one. It never came to me. I don't know where that one ended up flying to. I just gotta check it out. But yeah, keeping me, like, if I'm being honest, if you want me to read something, the best way you can get me to read it is like suggesting it to me on Throne so I can put it up, and then somebody will probably help me out with that, because it adds up to get these books. So I appreciate it. Is Twice Dead King, if you need a little more background. I will have to look into that one. Oh my god, there's so many books. I will read all 600. It's too many.
Number 2, Khorne. Khorne, also known as the Blood God or the Lord of Skulls, is the chaos god of war, violence, and bloodshed. He is the manifestation of anger.
What? Is he number 2? This is so interesting to me. Because, like, I'm like, physical prowess does not necessarily equate strength. Khorne.
Hatred, rage, and murder.
Can we get some corny emotes?
Considering that Khorne derives his power
Get some
from
corny
the desire
emoji,
to
corny
spill
emoji in the
blood,
chat.
it comes as little surprise that in the grim darkness of the 42nd millennia, where there is only war, Khorne is currently experiencing a resurgence and is considered to be the most powerful of the ruinous powers. The urge to commit violence in one form or another
Maybe
is
he's
one of the
growing
most
in, you know,
basic drivers
his opinionated
amongst
list.
any
That's
mortal
okay.
species. It doesn't matter how
I guess
advanced a
it's the
society
part of the
claims
time.
to be or how enlightened they've
There's so much
seemingly
war right
become.
now that he's strong.
Violence is a primordial force that will never fully lessen its grip
I get the
on
argument.
mortals. Whether it be a warrior defending his home, a
I just
sadistic
find
act
Khorne
of
a little
murder
lame
for murder's
right now.
sake, or every drunken barroom brawl that has ever occurred, every violent act or expression of rage flows into the immaterium and directly empowers the blood god.
So every time I accidentally step on somebody's heel in front of me, that's like kind of a mini act of violence. I'm feeding Khorne. I need to be careful.
Although he has been worshipped by
Number
countless
one.
civilizations
Number 1 could still be Sunny, and I'm not gonna say any spoilers. All I'm saying.
across space and time,
You know.
there are a lot of
Leave it
similarities
up
to
to
how he is depicted.
interpretation.
He's often shown as being a towering giant with a canine head, armored
didn't
in
intend-
brass
oh,
and
intention
seated
matters?
upon a mountain of skulls, on top of which he lets loose bellowing
Number
war
1 is
cries
Tom
that
Bombadil.
echo through reality, a sanguine call to spill blood and take skulls. He is
Damn.
the physical and immaterial, figurative and literal incarnation of rage, and is often depicted wielding a mighty and terrible axe or sword known as Warbringer.
I think that like Khorne is like a little bit like if you are ever wondering what it's like to have a period, like is a material, figurative, and literal incarnation of rage. It's kind of what it's like. You know, Warbringer. I feel like this is kind of how women feel.
A sword so powerful that it sunders reality when swung, cleaving through dimensions
The blood god, no!
to
No!
eviscerate whatever has drawn the blood god's ire. Despite being the most
No,
powerful,
now he can't be called that. We have to call it anything else. I should not have brought that up. We'll call him just the fire god or something.
Khorne is also the most straightforward of the gods. He has an absolute disdain for tricksters and any who would lie or cheat their way to victory. Naturally, he and his followers hate sorcery in all its forms, and vastly prefer to fight with melee weapons, viewing those who use
doesn't like
long-range
strategy.
firearms to wage war.
Cheating is
as
just
cowards.
strategy.
The earliest
How dare you get tricked, you goofy goon? That was your own fault. They can't. I don't
lore
know,
on
man.
Khorne depicted him as a
Cramps for the
multifaceted
cramp
god of not just rage and blood, but
I made this
also
too
one of
goofy,
honor.
I fucked up.
Although the further
been
along
around
we
for
move in the
decades.
timeline and the more
gotta
40K
change
lore
it.
gets updated, Khorne's honorable side has mostly taken a back seat. Although him
No.
and his followers still maintain certain convictions about how war should
Blood for the blood god, pads for the high flow. Guys, this is so
fought.
doomed.
At the end of the day, Khorne cares not from whence the blood flows.
I
only
can't
that
pay
it flows.
attention to how
When it
strong
comes
he
to
is
his
because we're
mythology as
making
a literal
period
figure,
jokes about
we
this
do
guy.
have a pretty good example of his raw physical strength.
How did this happen?
Wherein one of
I
his
did
most
this.
esteemed bloodthirsters, Scarbrand, sought to overthrow the blood god after having been manipulated by Tzeentch into thinking he actually stood a chance against him. When Khorne's back was turned, Scarbrand
the
threw
skip.
everything he had into a single blow with his axe, a blow that was said to be so powerful it could have split entire worlds. This didn't even dent Khorne's armor. Enraged by the cowardice of the attack, Khorne grabbed Scarbrand by the neck and shook him so hard that all he had ever been, all of his personality, his cunning, his ambition, all of it was shaken out of him. He then threw the greater demon so hard, he flew across space and time for 8 days straight, leaving an inconceivable burning trail of destruction in his wake. Remarkably, Skarbrand survived, and where once there was a proud warlord whose hubris caused him to fly too close to the proverbial sun, now was nothing more than a blood-crazed monster. Number 1. The Hive Mind.
Guys, they're literally lying. It's me. He just hasn't read my book yet. I transcend time and space, but he'll read it soon. The Hive Mind is not even like, I don't even know. Is this a creature? Man, I don't know. This is kind of under... I am the Hive Mind. What's your book's title? Sunny's super cool. And the strongest in 40K. Which makes it so curious how he didn't catch, look at the title of this video, most powerful characters. With that title, it would have tipped him off. He saw your comments and took me off the list. Fuck! He is spiting me. It's always Sunny in 40K. The Hive Mind, though. This feels like not a cop-out, but okay, so this is... Because it's like, that's just the swarm here of, like, all of the Tyranids. I'm like, does this even... How do we even know if it's like... It's not BS. Okay, let's hear him out.
The Hive Mind of the Tyranids is without a doubt the most intelligent and dangerous thing that exists in our universe. It is able to simultaneously control seemingly infinite Tyranid organisms across infinite battlefields at the same time, orchestrating impossibly complex battle strategies and engineering new forms of evolution in order to overcome just about anything its enemies can throw at it. It is, for all intents and purposes, an organic quantum computer.
Yeah, but it's probably... Is it a guy? It's just a Tyranid, or like all of the Tyranids, like all of them using all of the Tyranid's brain. Not just it's a collective so powerful and mysterious that it creates a void in the warp. Communication stops at working probably when the Tyranids are close. Well, I'm like, that's okay. In that case, but I'm thinking this is supposed to be the top 10 most powerful characters. You see the title? Does this thing okay, this is literally just called mystery because he doesn't want to spoil it when you But is the Hive Mind a character?
On a level that is completely incomprehensible. And it's not only controlling all of the Tyranids within our galaxy, a species that reproduces so quickly that it has effectively become the Milky Way's dominant life form, outnumbering every other species thousands of times over. With
it has a personality. It's like a guy.
But the Tyranids come from outside of our galaxy.
It's one
and
thing.
Some believe they have already consumed every
The Hive
other
Mind
galaxy.
is inherently a
Some
thing.
Say the fleets we have
things.
seen thus far are only a small portion of their entirety. The Tyranids are not only the most powerful faction within Warhammer,
an ego.
They are the most
fair.
powerful character, as every single one of them is part of the same organism. The Tyranids are not a race or a species. It is a single creature, despite their appearance as an alien dinosaur bug monster.
I like this. This is answering my question.
It's more accurate to think of them as something like an aspen forest, wherein each
all the
individual
same
that
tree.
we see is part of the same single creature. But whereas the aspen forest can stretch out over multiple kilometers, the Tyranids have spread in a similar manner across multiple galaxies. It may even be more apt to think of them in a way that compares them to a human body. We are a single individual, but we are made up of dozens of trillions of cells. So too is each individual
Tyranid is a cell
of the larger body that is the Hive Mind.
My
The
bro said
name,
you're
the
cute, too.
Hive
Oh my
Mind,
God,
is
I'm
not a
blushing.
title of a leader organism that controls the Tyranids. It is quite literal in that the entity is the combined consciousness of all Tyranids. Every single one, from the lowly Ripper all the way up to the massive ship-sized entities that ferry their troops across the stars, are simply smaller parts of the same body. When we think of the Hive Mind, we often tend to imagine some giant alien brain that exists out in the dark places between galaxies that controls all of the Tyranids. And there very well might be an organism like that. But even if there was, it would still just be another organ within the Tyranid body. The Eldar have come to believe that the Hive Mind is more powerful than Slaanesh and represents the greatest threat to the physical universe. This is a passage from Wraithflight, where one of the Eldari is able to, for a moment, tap into the Hive Mind's consciousness. Beyond the shield, she saw the great dragon's true form, not the hideous intrusions into the mortal realm that swam the Black Star Sea, nor as a Farseer might see it, as a great and braided cable of malicious fate dominating all the skein. The first was merely part of the whole, the second, psychic abstraction. What Lyanna instead saw was the reality of its soul. It was a great shadow when seen from afar, a wave of dread and psychic blindness that preceded the Hive Fleet's arrival. But the greatest shadows are cast by the brightest lights, and seen closely, the soul of the Hive Mind shone brighter than any sun.
I will say that this is promoting my original idea that you can totally hack this thing.
She was so close now that she perceived the rigid topography of its mind, larger than star systems.
Its brain
an
isn't even
entity
smooth.
Bigger than a god. It contemplated thoughts as large as continents and spun plans more complex than worlds. It dreamed dreams that could not be fathomed. She felt small and afraid before it, but she did not let her fear cow her defiance. Against this vista flickered the souls of the Eldar, their jewel brightness dimmed by the incomparable glare of the great dragon. And this was but a tendril of the creature. The bulk of it stretched away, coils wrapped tight around higher dimensions, joining in the distance to others and then others again, until at a great confluence of the parts sat the terrible truth of the whole. She stared at its brilliance.
So it is kind of
Unlike her
creature-like.
passionless dead
Yes,
warriors
hack
who
the
felt
Hive
naught
Mind,
but the
really.
echoes of wrath at the sight. She was fascinated by the beauty on display. She thought, if only such a thing could be tamed, it would drive out she who thirsts forever. If only its hunger was for things other than the meat and blood of our worlds. Perhaps most telling, though, is the Hive Mind's presence within the warp. And for that, we can look no further than...
So she looked at its actual soul thing, and she saw, like, a thing with, like, tendrils.
the anti-psychic phenomena the Tyranids generate, known as the Shadow in the Warp. It's basically a massive null field around the Tyranids that blocks all connection to the Immaterium. If you are familiar with the Sisters of Silence in 40K, or blanks in general, you know they are an individual person that produces a similar field. Being in the presence of such a creature is physically painful for psychers, and elongated exposure can cause, in some cases, severe physical and psychological damage for them, let alone the fact that in the presence of a blank, they cannot utilize their powers. The size of this null sphere is different from blank to blank depending on their ability. But when you take the Tyranids as a singular organism, their null field is just on a completely incomprehensible scale that literally blocks out sections of the warp. There was an interesting passage in the novel Darkness in the Blood, wherein a ship traveling through the warp became besieged by demons. The situation is pretty bleak until a vast darkness falls over the ship and utterly snuffs out the invaders.
Oh my god.
A sea change.
My boy is quoting the Bible. This is okay, but I have to. I give him credit. This kind of sucks as like a final response, even if it's true. And he's backing it up really solidly.
The warp altered, though subtly at first. Rosalis had little experience.
I don't have to be happy with it for it to be like rightish.
Had he been born to the role, he might have noticed it sooner. Like ancient mariners, tasted the shift from salt to sweet in the waters of Terra's lost
every
oceans.
single thing.
But soon
Yeah,
it became apparent
it's too
to him
much.
that the tempest was calming.
You have to pick
the
and
shrieking
choose.
idioforms and psychopomps struggled to take shape. Those that manifested were sucked back to nothingness amongst the energies that birthed them. Colors bled away, currents stilled. A black wall was growing ahead, as impenetrable as the densest fog bank and infinitely more forbidding. The task force sped towards it. The armored angel glinted in front of the darkness and vanished within completely. Against all the laws that governed it, the Empyrean lost its mutability. Blackness seeped from the roiling wall of shadow. The visions and images weakened and then stopped altogether. There was a brief passage through warp space of a primordial calmness, smooth and bright as a moonlit pond, and then the flotilla plunged into darkness.
So, okay, let's say that we have a trillion billion Tyranids. A trillion billion cajillion everywhere. Does the warp go away? Like, if they're muting the warp in the Materium, what happens to the warp in the non-Materium? Does it just, like, lose access, or does it actually affect the warp?
A new terror assailed Raculus.
Kinda.
A vast, godlike mind
I don't
turned
know,
its attention
guys.
upon the ships. So puissant it quelled
feel like we
the
can
fury
use
of the
these.
warp. The Hive Mind was
We
the
have an
truth of the
opportunity here.
Tyranids. The Blood Angels
Different
believed
kind of
the
warp?
war beasts that plagued the universe were merely the material extrusion of something far greater. And that thing dwelt in the warp. The pressure of the Hive Mind's regard was immense, crushing Raculus's soul until it felt infinitely small. At great remove, He felt blood trickle from the corners of his mortal eyes.
Damn.
The idea that the
sucks.
Hive Mind is a larger threat than the Chaos Gods is also backed up by an Eldar Farseer in the novel Godblight.
Are we going to keep reading from the books?
That comparing it...
My guy loves Eldar books. The Tyranids are also the most pressing threat to the galaxy. True. It's just that for them, I think for me, I do not disagree with that. I am having trouble with the agreeing of the Hive Mind at being a character. Like, I think it's a cool interpretation, and I guess the Hive Mind, if everything comes together, becomes an entity. So, but like, yeah, I don't know. It's just so split apart physically that it's hard to see as a character, but like the Hive Mind as like as a soul, like kind of, well, then again, like, I don't know, Slaanesh or Slaanesh. Like, even the Chaos Gods technically are pretty ambiguous.
To the Catan and the Chaos Gods, the Great
They
Devourer
don't have a physical
is perhaps
form,
a greater
so...
threat than all of them. The Necron seem to think
This
so
guy's
as
a
well,
split up one.
as the
I don't know, it's
Tyranids'
fine.
arrival was what propelled the Silent
I
King
want a
out
name.
of exile in the first place. The fact that these immortal beings that enslaved and shattered their own gods were afraid of the Hive Mind is a statement in and of itself.
That's
and
true.
I just kind of want to put it into perspective. All of the major threats that
Spitting
exist
facts.
in 40K that could theoretically wipe out humanity have all been around for an enormously long time. The Necrons, the Orcs, and the Eldari have existed for over 60 million years. The Chaos Gods, at least in the realm of the Warp, have always existed. Even the Tau, the youngest of all of the factions in 40K, have been around for a few thousand years. The first recorded contact with the Tyranids was in 745 M41, the 745th year of the 41st millennium. The furthest point in the timeline that we've seen so far is 15 years past the start of the 42nd millennium, which means that they've only been observed in our
Like
galaxy
300
for
years?
270 years.
Oh my
In the
God.
grand timeline of the universe,
They've become a big problem really
that's
quick.
less time than it takes to blink. And yet already, they are being spoken about as if they are the end to all things.
Oh,
In
shit.
other videos, I've ruminated on just how powerful the Tau, for example, will be if they were given another 1,000 years to continue developing. Where will the Tyranids be 100 years from now?
So I say that the Tyranids are going to be gone in 50K.
200 years. 300, as more Tyranids continue to flood into our galaxy.
They're gonna,
and
like,
the ones
this
that
is
are
like a
already here
firework.
continue to
It's gonna burn out
repopulate
quick.
out of control. The singular organism that is the Hive Mind represents the largest threat to every living creature in the galaxy. They are the end times.
It's gonna have a
due to the
kryptonite and it's gonna
twofold
explode.
factor of first, their primary driving force being the consumption of all organic life, and second, that consumption resulting in the destruction of all those who empower the gods, while simultaneously growing the shadow in the warp that sunders the connection between the physical and the immaterial, blotting out sections of the warp and further reducing the gods' effectiveness. The Pantheon has no ability to influence the Hive or any members of its infinite brood.
Yet, once again, we need to start thinking Sunny will take them out in 50K. So, I mean, I didn't want to spoil anything, but I've already, you know, I'm telling you they're gone in 50K because I fucking killed them.
Thus, the
Let's fucking
stronger
go,
and larger
boys.
it gets, the
Up
weaker
high.
they in turn become. The Hive Mind
but no,
is a
seriously,
larger
I don't
threat
think
to the
this
galaxy
can be
than all
the
of the
ever-
gods combined, and is
the
more
forever
threatening to
threat.
each god on an individual level than any of their other siblings or the Emperor. It is
We're
for
gonna
those
find a way that to beat these guys, and then the story's gonna balance out a little bit more.
reasons that I award the #1 spot to the Hive Mind as the most powerful entity in all of Warhammer 40K.
I can agree with it.
But what
I like it. Okay.
do you guys think? Do you
I think you're dumb. No, this was a really good video. I make sure, what do we do when we like a channel? We subscribe. I like that he had a lot of backup. I think that this is like, after reading his excerpts and everything, I agree. It's just like it's said, but I just think it's lame because I don't like the Tyranids. It's not like a god, which would be so cool. Oh my god. We subscribe, we give bad comments. No, we leave a comment. By the way, this video, I think the one that we have pinned is, I think that was the previous one we watched. It is, so let's unpin that. And there's the video if you'd like to open it up. Give the guy a like, give him a subscribe. And yeah, that was a good video. I just, I'm never going to be able to see Khorne again, and I'm sad that the Hive Mind is so powerful because I just think I just don't like the idea. I think it's like just a thing, and it's fine, but it's not that cool, and I'm always right. And you know what?